Gravedigger Queen here, and I have an honest question I'd like to ask of you tonight, children. Me and the crew were pulling an all-nighter, and the subject of vampires was broached. So, children, I ask of you, what is your thoughts on vampires? Are they just emo nerds or actually princes of the night? I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on this, children. So, no. I'm gonna hold them till the end. How about I give you a little tale, and then you can make up your mind, too. The name of tonight's tale is The Color Yellow by Montsho Shelby. Lights and colors danced in Malcolm's head. Yellows, greens, purples, brilliant and vivid. He sat in front of the washing machine, letting his mind take him on a trip. When he was there, he was gone. It was the only place he could forget about everything. LSD was the only thing that actually worked anymore. If he kept on going like he was, there wouldn't be anything that would take him away from his awful reality. Someone approached him and spoke, but as far as he was concerned, it was a formless mass of light. "You're in a bad way, friend. Can you even hear me?" said the voice. Malcolm barely turned his head because he wasn't sure if he was talking to a person or a voice in the void. "You probably can't hear me, friend, but I see you. When you sober up, give me a call." Malcolm no longer heard the voice, and he disregarded it as a hallucination. Malcolm stumbled off into the night. The light stretched and pulled into the form of long, endless streams. He didn't know how long he was walking because time became an abstraction. This was the best life was going to get. This high, as chemically vacant as it was, though illusionary bliss, it was the closest thing he'd get to happiness. This was the moment he decided to end it all. He could only guess at the meaning of these bizarre lights, but if he stepped in front of the biggest one, he was certain that would be all it would take to end it. He took a look down at his wedding ring, the only thing that he hadn't abandoned in his new life, and kissed it lovingly as if it embodied the spirit of the person inside it. He stepped in the path of the biggest light he could and prayed it was the light of an angel coming to shepherd him away. He heard the sound of distant horns. Perhaps it was heaven's choir. Suddenly, something yanked him from the jaws of death. "I knew I'd better keep an eye on you," said the voice. Malcolm saw a yellow streak of light descend from the sky like it was heaven sent. "Come on. Maybe it was just your night to die," said the voice with a fear-like desperation in his tone. The voice screamed out in pain, and there was a scuffle. With two blurs of motion intertwined, Malcolm watched the interplay of colors with morbid fascination. The yellow blurs growled and snarled. Malcolm felt a hand take his hand. He ran. They ran together into the swirling night. He didn't know how long he ran for. He only knew his legs burned from use. Malcolm heard screaming. Then the voice said, "You can have a purpose, even in our miserable existence." Then the voice stopped and his eyes saw darkness. When Malcolm woke, he was greeted by the serenade of a garbage can rat. He couldn't get upset. He was in his house. He climbed out of the dumpster with no dignity to salvage. He looked at the cresting sun on the horizon and saw his skin bubble, as if touched by the first signs of third-degree burns. "Shit," he said to himself as he ran at full speed back to the hole he called home. Malcolm entered his small one-bedroom apartment in Skid Row. Not much better than the dumpster in some respects. No traces of sunlight were here. His condition made sunlight impossible to stand. In that, he burned alive. He stripped down his clothes, noticing the dried blood splattered all over his thrift store plaid. He himself was a wily and unshaven white man some might mistake for a millennial hipster, if not for the smell of death. Malcolm saw a white card fall out of his top pocket. It was a mission rescue for drug-addicted people. Malcolm took the card in his hand and thought to crumple it, but he felt something inside him that said, no, he needed it. It seemed like the person that gave him this was important, and he couldn't disregard it. He planned to be dead, and yet he was alive. The acceptance of a simple car was what it took to save him, to rescue him, as it were. Someone wanted him alive. Maybe it was God, or maybe it was this guy. What was one more night to know for sure? Malcolm was jonesing pretty bad when he approached the mission. He hadn't taken care of himself for quite some time. He didn't feel the need anyway, seeing that he was still looking for a way out of this world, not content to sit around and suffer through to the end. He took a look at the crumpled business card, then to where this supposed mission rescue was. As rundown as the neighborhood was, and as hopeless as it all looked, there was a church on the block, if you could even call it that. The church appeared as any other building in this rundown strip of depressed shops. It was like a hidden gem obscured by a liquor store and a cell phone place sandwiching it into the middle. There was a crudely made hand-printed sign over top of an oddly out-of-place burned door. For whatever reason, the ancient nature of the door gave the hidden temple some measure of legitimacy. The dark scorches in the wood seemed to tell a story that transcended the commonality of this place. I sat there like a war veteran amongst children. Malcolm slowly pulled the handle on the heavy door, realizing that part of it was new, as if it had been replaced at some point in time. When he crossed the threshold, he felt a cold shiver, but one would hardly tell it affected him, what with all the twitching he was doing on his own. The interior of this hidden sanctum held a slew of metal folding chairs that were all assembled into a circle. There was a long folding table with coffee and donuts set up to one side. Up at the head of this place was a podium equipped with a microphone, and despite how poor it all felt, there was a very good wooden sculpture of Jesus on a cross hanging high as the centerpiece. Sitting in the chairs were 4 poor souls that seemed to be there for the rescuing. What exactly from was still a mystery to him. He was too high the night someone had given him the card. He couldn't remember what the person looked like, who he was, or what exactly was the purpose of his intervention. One of the men around the circle spoke. Though he wasn't a big man, he had the look of the one burdened with authority. The other 3 looked as addicted and twitchy as he was. "Why don't you take a seat, friend?" said the man who he took to believe was leading this group. "Does anyone need to share?" said the group leader. He was a black man in his 30s with hair out of control, but he seemed the cleanest of the 3. Nothing was familiar about any of the people here to Malcolm. There was a long silence after the group leader posed his question, and when the silence broke, it was not the sharing reply he called for. "Fuck this shit. There ain't no point to any of this shit," said a dangerously thin woman. "No, come on, he wouldn't want it to end. We have to keep going," said the group leader. "Why?" asked the thin woman who was standing and ready to bolt. "Because we need each other," he said like a plea. The woman made an amused psst sound and walked out of the door. The others did not look confident in their convictions with the loss of one. The group forged ahead and looked at Malcolm. "What brings you to our circle today, friend?" Malcolm seriously gave thought to leaving without saying a word, but he didn't. Someone or something told him he was worth saving, and he may as well get to the bottom of this before he just killed himself like he had planned to.